Hey there, my name is Joe Keyport, and you're listening to the Ear Coffee Podcast. This week's episode, I talked to Henry Patterson of the band Filthy Kittens about their debut record, Trouble in Mayberry. You might talk with Henry, you find out that this band and this record was more than just an artistic expression. It was a way for Henry to reconnect with some old friends and breathe new life into songs he had written years ago when growing up in Red Wing, Minnesota. It's Henry of Filthy Kittens, and he's right here on the Ear Coffee Podcast. Henry, how's it going?
It's going great.
Yeah.
Was I hot on that?
You can pull, you can
closer to the mic.
Pull it back to you.
All right. Here we go.
Cool.
I'm doing good, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Of course. And so, for people who aren't aware, you play in Filthy Kittens, which is a newish band here to the scene, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I always ask bands this every time kind of we have someone in, which is, what's your kind of log line? How do you describe Filthy Kittens to someone who maybe doesn't know? You know, like it's kind of like whether it's a family member that goes, "Oh, cool, you play in a band." Like, what's that? Or like someone like your coworker who's like, "Oh, you play in a band. What's that? What's like your 1 to 2 sentence that you describe Filthy Kittens with?"
All right, I'm used to that. Guitar music,
okay.
And then I'd say, like, specifically, it's kind of more folk oriented, like folk rock.
Yeah.
Rock and roll rock, pop rock.
Yeah.
It's kind of easy listening stuff with a decent variety of styles and tempos.
Oh, totally. And so what's your history with music look like? What got you involved in wanting to, like, whether it's listening music through kind of wanting to start performing and writing under your own kind of banner and get off of like the couch or you're practicing to play in front of people?
Yeah. I guess there's a couple different stages. When I was a child, I listened to this artist, Dan Zanes. So he's this children's artist, but his music is kind of more like family oriented, so where the parents don't get annoyed by it. He's got a lot of like folk covers and stuff throughout his own like original children's music. So he had crazy hair and played guitar, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. So then I started taking guitar lessons. I hated it, so I quit. And I only had like an acoustic guitar that I hated. So then in middle school, I picked it back up, just kind of noodling around. And then YouTube was the thing, so I could learn like guitar tutorials of like Boston songs and stuff like that. So, and then I got a pawn shop electric guitar. So that's kind of from that point on. Then it was just like, it was a lot of fun, just kind of off to the races with learning different, styles. And then I never really sang because I was really shy about it. I would lip sync choir concerts and I hated it. I was so scared. Yeah. But eventually it's like, okay, all my friends, we're all jamming and other people start singing. It's like, all right, I'll start doing it.
Join in and
it's contagious. So started singing eventually. And then as far as writing songs go, I was inspired mainly by someone I'd mentioned before, Sam Ketchum in Harlow. He had a band they were just like a year older than me. We all grew up in the same town in Red Wing, and they were writing songs. And I've told him this before, and I honestly think him and the other guys in the band, they all really inspired me to start writing songs. So, because I had a band as well down in Red Wing. So, and Noah was in that same group too. Noah Topliff, who's in Dad Bod. So it was a fun little scene. So that's kind of what got me into writing songs, was just wanting to be able to play my own music, I guess.
That's always cool when you're like, you have that connection to a local, more like this, like, instead of being like, well, I really loved X, band, and that's what made me write. He's like, no, my friends all did it, and that I wanted to be able to keep up with them. Yeah. It's like a more fun and almost a more organic way to just like get into it without feeling over competitive.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was like kind of, I think maybe naturally, like, it's not like, oh, here's these bands that are like huge budgets, big studios, really good writers. It's maybe it's more and not to say anything about my friend Sam and Noah's writing skills as 16-year-olds or 15-year-olds. A lot of great songs they actually made, and there's more stories about that I'll get into later. But it was kind of more attainable maybe, because it was like, okay, they're recording songs like DIY. Yeah. So it's not like so if I was gonna compare myself to somebody as I'm being inspired, then it wasn't like, oh my God, I'm being compared to something that's crazy big budget. It's just like, it's just our friends. Yeah. So exactly like you're saying.
Yeah. And it's that experience. Like I remember when one of my friends was like, yo, I bought an interface. And you're just like, what's that? You're like, oh, it allows me to record on my computer and I can actually plug nice microphones in. It's just like that world expanding of like, oh, you don't need to go into like Sun Studios or Sound City or, or even like some of the studios here in Minnesota.
We'll hang up posters of those places in the little basement.
Yeah, exactly. We'll pretend. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So you were in bands and playing in bands pretty quick into your kind of journey with music then?
Yeah, that was pretty much right away.
Okay.
So my friend Isaac Gadiant, who is on the album and played the show with us, the Filthy Kittens release show, he and I started a band. Like we started jamming maybe like right when I was starting to get into guitar again. And ever since, it was just me and him jamming and writing songs kind of. We were probably the closest. He was probably my closest music friend ever since the beginning, and still today.
Nice. So then, when did Filthy Kittens form? Well, when did you officially put it together as like this is the vehicle we're using to put out this music?
So Filthy Kittens was something that started about a year ago in early 2022. I've been in a lot of different bands throughout. I was in high school back. I graduated 2016. So I've been in a number of bands since leaving my hometown and coming up to the cities.
Yeah.
And one of them was Early Eyes.
Okay.
So then I was in that band briefly. And then with my friend Dez, who was in that band. So then about a year ago, or maybe 2 years ago, me and Dez started hanging out more again. And then we started jamming more. So eventually it was like, we really want to play music again, like live. We had someone asked us if we wanted to play a show, and so I had the name Filthy Kittens like for a while. Like if I start another band, like that would be a really good name. So, and he was down for the name, and so we just started playing a couple shows, kind of casual, just like us playing as a duo. And then what happened after that? So then we recorded a couple songs, and then eventually the album came about, and there's kind of a whole story. The album's really a mixture of a lot of different songs from a lot of different times, actually.
Okay.
And some of them were started back when I was in high school, and then we did a lot of overdubs on them. And so it's very eclectic as far as not just the sound, if that's an opinion, but just the sources. But I think that I'd like to think we did a pretty good job of organizing everything in a current context. Yeah. Because we did a lot of overdubs where Dez is singing on different songs. Different people are throwing on a guitar solo here and there, and just remixing in general. And so we just wanted to play together again, me and Dez, to get back to that. And so then this was a little vehicle for us to do that. And we actually booked the release show before we decided to do an album. And I kind of realized, like, you know what? Like we have kind of an album here, so let's just do this album and then make it a release show. So it's kind of, we don't have crazy like big plans, but things just kind of come together.
That's sick. Yeah. And so, who else is in the band? You mentioned Dez, and you talked about your other friend, who the name's blanking.
Isaac.
Isaac. Yeah.
It's so many names, so don't feel bad at all about trying. Like
usually, I write them all down, but I forgot to do that. So
there's too many people to even bother. So don't worry.
That's okay. The redacted band that Wes and I are in also has too many people, so we're it's hard to keep them all straight. So you have Isaac, you have Dez, you have yourself. Who else is in Filthy Kittens?
And then I need to mention Mitch, who was I mentioned before, the drummer. Okay, Mitchell Nelson. I just met him like a year or two ago, like a year and a half, maybe a year ago. And we had been mutuals online, I think. And then I knew that he was a really solid drummer from the stuff you'd post. And I was like, all right, I should reach out to this guy and just jam and get a feel. And we started hanging out and jamming, and it was a lot of fun. And then as we started booking some more shows, like me and Dez as Filthy Kittens were like, like now we can, if Mitch is down, now we can have some drums on it as well. So that was the course of things. And then, so that's been great. And Mitch recorded some drums on the album too. So that's been good. And then Isaac Gadian, who I mentioned, he's also in the band. So Mitch, Dez, Isaac. Yeah. And then there's Irene Manning, who plays cello. And she does a great job of joined in. This is her first band. So,
nice.
Like, she hasn't played in other bands or played cello live without the context of like a
more classical context. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm really excited and grateful she's down for the journey with it. And then we were mentioning before Sam Ketchum. He joined us for the release show.
Okay.
He joined us just for a couple songs. Like,
Gotcha.
so I'm not trying to, say like he's a full-fledged member because he's a busy guy with Harlow, but he, luckily was down to join in for the recording process on one of the songs, and then for playing live, he joined on stage. So that's kind of the core of it. And but things are kind of loose. Like, we'll see. There might be some more contributors. And as far as the album goes, there was quite a few other players on the album too. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it's definitely like you have your core people, and then just like a kind of a list of people who just kind of filter through when they have the time and the ability to kind of give it. Yeah. That's sick. So kind of moving in right before we get to the debut record, which is Trouble in Mayberry, you released a single, kind of introduced the band to the world through Mr. Tambourine Man, which like loved it. What made you want to do a cover, and why Mr. Tambourine Man is like the kind of the introduction for Filthy Kittens?
It's such a catchy song, and me and Des always really liked it. And so it was a nice way for us to kind of warm up.
Yeah.
Because we hadn't played together for a while. We hadn't recorded together in a while. I hadn't even really recorded a lot in general. And especially like with somebody else, which is like when I'm recording by myself, it's, I can do like tons of takes, and I can be kind of obnoxious about how perfect I might want something or precise, I'd say. So, recording with someone in a full band is a lot different. So that was a nice warm up, I think, for me in that way, and then for both of us just together. So it was easy. The song's already written, already a great song.
Yeah,
and pretty hard to fuck it up. So
yeah, exactly. Okay,
so that was like the main reason, and then the fact that it was Bob Dylan and the Minnesotan thing, I didn't even think about that. And I realized like, oh, okay, cool. It's like a Minnesota thing in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes total sense. And it's like a why put the stress of trying to create something when you have this thing that already exists for y'all to kind of get reacquainted and creatively figure each other out in a studio setting.
Yeah.
Because are you as adventurous like sonically? Because like Dad was thinking of the Dusty Forever record he put out last year.
Yeah.
He really soundscapes with that record and kind of the way he produces. Do you both kind of fit into that kind of way, or are you more kind of like a straightforward trying to capture as come to you? Or
I like all of it.
Okay.
And I think a lot of the soundscapey stuff, for me, it's been a more a matter of like time. Like it takes a lot of time to create stuff like that. And it also, not just that, but like, I guess maybe I'm not as quick as it as Des is ultimately. But then like live arranging is a little bit trickier with that. So I've been trying to be considerate of that. At some point in time, I'd be down to have some kind of, samples and tracks. That I'm not opposed to stuff like that. So it could be really fun to have something like that at some point. Yeah, Des has got a lot of really great stuff with Dusty Forever. And I failed to mention that, so he was, actually the first time we started recording together again was early 2022.
Okay.
I just played guitar on one of the Dusty Forever songs on the album. And then he had a couple shows, so then with Dusty Forever, so I was playing those right away too. So that was an important part of our reconnecting as well. So,
yeah, well, that's cool.
Yeah.
So the debut record is kind of keeping with that 60s theme of, starting off with Mr. Tambourine Man is titled Trouble in Mayberry, which if you think about what Mayberry is and what it stands for, it's very evocative of like a certain like the idyllic place everybody kind of goes to when they think of yesteryear. It's not all that it seems and all that's cracked up to be. And so talk to me about what you were really putting into this record as, especially under that title going into it. What was the things you were thinking of? And you talked about earlier, you wrote, or these songs were written over different periods too, kind of what was going on when you were writing and putting together the record.
A lot of different ideas from the different times, and I'm glad you know the reference of Mayberry of Andy Griffith. I take it, yeah. So I'm super stoked that you know that, we almost wanted to use that as our walk-on music at our show, but we were concerned that nobody would know the reference.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you knew it. The Mayberry idea, my mom and dad would always say that when we would be in Red Wing where I grew up, and we'd see like cops pulling over somebody. And especially if there was like multiple cops.
Yeah.
We'd be like, oh, there's trouble in Mayberry. That's just kind of something we'd say under our breath. So sarcastically, it's just small town. There's not a whole lot going on, so you got to make something out of nothing, especially as far as the trouble goes. And so the choice for that title came from some of the songs actually being started in high school with me and the other collaborators on the album. So members. And I think that we kind of had this attitude of like, when we were growing up, we're in this small town, we're trying to, rebel and make some music, because there's not a lot of people doing that in a small town, and not a lot of people that even want to come out and that dig it. You know? So like, I feel kind of like, in a way, in a musical parallel to like the Andy Griffith Show being all trouble about nothing, in a small town. So that was, and here we are rebelling, playing guitar and being loud and skateboarding in parking lots at midnight and getting getting the cops coming and telling us to stop, and just all sorts of little things like that. So that was the main idea, and I'm wondering if there's any other thoughts I had about it. I think that's mainly it. Yeah.
So what are the old? So you said some of these songs date back to when you started, working on music in high school. What are some of the oldest songs then on the record that have been sitting in the shelf, on a hard drive somewhere, waiting for you to come back and find them?
I think the oldest two songs are "Don't Make It Harder" and "Staring at the Sun."
Okay,
those were done in the summer of 2015, and then "Wildflower." Well, that "Wildflower" is actually the oldest one. That was in like the spring of 2015. But, and what was the other one? "Walked Around the Corners" was like early 2016.
Okay.
So those are the four songs that were like old. Okay. And then the rest of them were all started from scratch in the last year.
Okay.
But some of those new four had been written maybe like 4 years ago. Like the writing was initially started then. But the first four I mentioned, the recording, had been started a long time ago. Yeah. So that was, it was, or what were you going to say?
No, you keep going.
So it was a lot of like, going back and like touching things up, like redoing a lot of parts, but maybe we keep like the drums and the bass. That was kind of like the context of going back.
Yeah. And I was going to ask, like, did any of those four really change between like when you recorded them and when you started retouching them for the record?
I think that the spirit, I'd like to think that we did it justice, where we kept the spirit of the initial song, because that's really what was going on and what fit then and made sense then and still does, at least we thought. So, they're pretty similar. It's more just like, I wasn't as good of a singer.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go and like, sing it again. And then maybe change a few lyrics, because maybe I had some lyrics I might have thought were cringy or just not as well thought out, or the syllables or consonants were tricky to sing or something like that. So that was the main point of the going back. And then remixing is a whole thing too. Like, okay, let's make sure things aren't, piercing my ears, because we didn't know how to mix a drum set and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was wondering you kind of talked about how you maybe touched some things up that were maybe a little cringy at the time, and some things that maybe didn't, for lack of better words, age as well as you would maybe expected it to. What were your thoughts and feelings kind of pulling those songs out again, just like hearing yourself from, 5 to 7 years ago? Like, what was those feelings like then?
It was a lot of closure, I think, because so some of these songs had been written in other bands. So like "Wildflower" was written for I released it just under my own name a long time ago, and that, or a while ago, whatever, it's not that long, I guess. But so that song was like, okay, I want this to be in this project, it's cool. And then "Walked Around the Corners" was a song that I did with a band in high school called Rodney Water, and that was with Dan O'Keefe on drums, who is now drumming in Dusty Forever.
Okay.
And then it was Michael McGough is playing bass, who he was the OG Dad Bod bassist, I think. So there's also all these musical connections in a way coming from Red Wing, which makes me really happy that we're all still jamming around town. And they were cool with me taking their performances and then doing a lot of overdubs on top of it for like my voice, like overdubbing that and throwing on other things. You know, Des sings on Wildflower, which that was actually initially there's too much shit. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
So much. You know, there's a lot of recordings. I don't want to take it too serious and like explain all of it.
No, you don't have to.
But
it's the point of a podcast, though. You can kind of take all the pieces of yarn and put it to the single point.
Which is really fun. So again, I'm glad to do this. But I felt a lot of closure because I was in all these bands and with all these different friends, and we didn't even put things on Spotify or streaming because it's like, okay, that costs money. Like, and we weren't that serious. So it was like, okay, like we just put it on Bandcamp. So the giving these songs a retouching and with the recordings, but then also like putting it on an album, putting it all on one single unit, and then dropping that on all the streaming platforms everyone actually will like go and listen to it on. It's like, okay, we're giving it a proper send off. So to me, it's tying the bow in a lot of different ways on all these different recordings, and then now can move forward and do new things. Yeah.
Are you happy with the way a lot of these songs were then wrapped up? Do you feel like that closure is like that is complete in a way for you then, or?
Yeah, personally. Yeah. I'm not going to speak on behalf of others, but I personally am very happy with it.
Yeah.
Like, and because there's a lot of really good performances that these other friends of mine had done, and it's like, okay, finally we can put it out.
Yeah.
Like, and then there's new songs on the album too. So like Waiting for Your Lovin', that's the first time that song had ever really seen the light of day. And then even though it was written a while ago, but then Let's Play, that was written like right before we recorded. We recorded that. That was great. That was kind of like, okay, here's the fresh, song, throwing everyone a bone. And then Training Wheels is Dez's song that he contributed. That's pretty much mostly just him. And great that he was down to offer it for the album. So that's like a full new song as far as its exposure to the world. And then Bones. I'm just kind of going down the list.
No, you're good.
Bones is Sam Ketchum from Harlow. That's a song he wrote back in 2015. That was the other Trouble in Mayberry thing is he had this song that was also about, he wrote it back when he lived in Red Wing. And it's, like a breakup song, and he was from back home in Mayberry, and so there's Sam, there's me, there's Isaac, and then Phil Mitchell, who sings on Staring at the Sun. He wrote that song and recorded it back in 2015, and then I did some overdubs with my voice. But like, there's all these people from this hometown, and this is our collective, all these different people singing lead vocals and on their songs. Sam wrote his song, Phil wrote his song, Des wrote his song. Des is not from Red Wing, but he's from, Wisconsin and Madison, as he's not from the big city, although I guess smaller city. But so that was kind of the vibe, just all these different small town stories.
Really just feels like a love letter to that time and place, even with the new songs you work in there to like it definitely feels like it's the stuff we worked on when we were like quote unquote kids, and it's the stuff now as we're kind of wrapping this up and kind of having an ode to that time and place and what we did together at that,
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. And I just realized, two of the songs, the newer ones, are about childhood. Like Dez's Training Wheels song is about being a kid, and he showed me that song right before I wrote Let's Play, but he showed me some demo where the vocals were like really quiet. I couldn't even understand the lyrics. And then a week later I wrote Let's Play, which is about like being a kid. Yeah. So we were on some kind of weird parallel thought thing where and then we came together and we're like, wait, we got these songs. So yeah, you're totally right about the songs being reflective on that as well, not just recorded in that context.
Yeah. I do, not to like fully like go track by track and do a deep dive into the record.
Do whatever you want. You just let me ramble and talk about my music for like super long time.
That's why we're here. We want to let the artists do their thing. I do want to ask about Waiting for Your Lovin', because I feel like that's kind of where the album, because like Let's Play and Training Wheels are these kind of quiet, these much more introspective and reflective moments. And I feel like Waiting for Your Lovin' is like the album really opens up and it like gives that like Rolling Stones bravado with like the rip and slide solo and stuff like that. So kind of talk to me about the song, and I do want to know who played slide on that, because like love me some slide guitar that isn't just like people trying to do the old blues, like we're just gonna hit all the strings at the 12th fret. Yeah.
All right, Dylan Sulphur.
Okay,
he played guitar on that, and he's an amazing guitarist. He is also from he's from River Falls.
Okay,
and I met him when we were at like a music camp, and like we were like 12.
Yeah.
So me, Isaac Gadiant, my friend from Red Wing, went to a camp, and we with our friend Mason Swanson, who was our singer in our band in Red Wing.
Yeah.
Shout out to him. Yeah. He doesn't play in, I don't think, in any bands around here right now, but he's awesome. Check out the Road Flares if you want that band. We went to a camp. We met Dylan Sulphur. He's an amazing player then, even more amazing now. And we kept in touch. Isaac, well, we didn't keep in touch, actually. Isaac met him at some random show like 3 years after that camp. And then him and Dylan started playing all sorts of shows. Because Dylan's like a proper gigging musician. Like he plays all these, bars, like, 3-hour sets, making money. And now he has a residency at Bunkers, which is like, do you know Bunkers?
I don't know Bunkers.
It's a North Loop venue that's been around for a long time.
Okay.
Before North Loop was North Loop. And like all the Prince musicians and the whole scene, they're heavy. They have bands that do weekly shows, like indefinite residencies, basically. So Dylan started a residency there recently, so go there every Wednesday to
be sick.
check him out.
I worked at the Caribou in the North Loop right outside of Target Field like in 2018. So after I'd get out on shifts at like 6 o'clock, I just like start walking usually the North Loop just because like bored and had nothing better to do. And it's just crazy the old venues. There's like the coolest shit going on. Like just a few blocks from where you work or kind of where even where your coffee's headquarters here are located.
I love dense areas.
Yeah.
So much happening.
Yeah. Exactly. It's the small town kid vibe of like there's nothing going on, but I can do everything now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we were biking and walking and scootering and skateboarding all over town.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Dylan, amazing slide player and singer, great singer too. He's awesome, and I don't think. Well, I had done some recording with him, but I hadn't like. Well, I've actually released a few songs with him already. He played drums on a song of mine that was on the album that I put out last year. Okay, little mini album. So he plays drums too. He's crazy. So I went to Bunkers on like a Wednesday night after his sound check before his set. I just brought my laptop and little interface, and we just.
Did it there?
Yeah, I just did it in the green room down there.
That's sick.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's really fun. And so I'm assuming you recorded the record pretty much yourself, all kind of DIY or?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Okay.
What was the kind of that experience like? Was it a mix of digital? I was looking through social media posts trying to glean any little information to ask about. And I'm like, so like the 4-track every now and again. And it's like, was it like a mix of stuff like that? Or was it kind of just running it DIY through, or running it, in DIs through an interface into a computer?
Tambourine Man was on that little 4-track you saw. We did the vocals and guitars on the 4-track, and then we took it and went digital to add like percussion stuff because we were just like, I don't know how to add it. We want to be able to mix it a little bit more. And then the album is actually all digital. I think that Training Wheels might sound like it was on the 4-track, but that's actually an old, like Des was using some weird thrift store microphone, vintage mic. That's kind of what gave it that sound. And it was all grainy and lo-fi, which is really fun. And the rest of it was digital. We did the, different conglomerations of interfaces plugged into the same computer to try to, get a whole drum set. Yeah. Like all sorts of DIY things that, I'm not even embarrassed. I'm like proud of it. Yeah. It's like, I'm not a gear guy. No. I don't buy into the whole Ponzi scheme of gear. No. So of like, I'm sponsored by this, so I'm going to sell it to all my friends and market this product. And, if any gear company wants to ever sponsor me, no,
I'll take the money.
I'll take the money. And honestly, the thing is like, you still need guitars. You still need amps. You still need shit that works. computers that work, so I'm not against gear. It's just like I want the basics, like the same interface that I bought in my mom bought me in 2011.
Yeah,
when we were talking about you getting your first interface, that's the same one that I use, and that recorded probably 75% of the music on this album.
Oh yeah, I
don't care,
Up until we got those stimulus checks from good old Joey B. We were working on Ear Coffee was functioning off of the same interface I bought when I graduated high school in 2013, and
there you go.
We were just like bringing it everywhere we went because what else are you gonna do?
Yeah,
but it just
sounds good.
Yeah, it works.
You just gotta know how to gain stage.
Yeah,
and EQ and compress stuff. You don't need to have the craziest preamps, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I know, like getting back to the 60s, 70s thing, like. All those albums were recorded on all sorts of crazy things. And maybe they did have a good preamp, but then like the cable was fucked up and like the tape was on tape, and then they couldn't even really mix it hardly because the tape's going to degrade and they don't have that much, outboard gear. So it's like
only have so many tracks you can put in, and it's just
you're going to have constraints.
Yeah.
And what the performance is in the writing, that's what really matters. And so it's kind of cliche, but that's really like what I try to focus on, because I've gone down my own ADHD rabbit holes of gear and adjusting this thing, and it's easy to do that with a computer because everything's so infinite and the gear is all marketed all sexy and so. But I'd like to think I've kind of honed in on focusing on the bigger picture, kind of 80-20 rule, and kind of banging things in that way.
Well, it came out well. It doesn't matter how you do it. It just end product's good and it's fantastic. Love the record.
Thank you.
I did want to ask. We got just a few more questions here. Do you have like a favorite memory from working on the album, or like something you think of as you're kind of working towards putting out Trouble in Mayberry? Or
so many.
Yeah. What's a couple of them? Or
don't feel bad asking that because it's fun. Super happy to reconnect with Dez and make some more music together, and we'll keep doing that, and that's been great. And then, like I said, tying the bow with a lot of other music friends. Some of them still playing, some of them not as much. But it's like, all right, hey guys, like we got this thing now, and it's more. I don't want to say professional. It's more just polished up and proper, and but just enough, not too much.
Yeah,
as you could probably tell. And then another memory, I think that Don't Make It Harder was a lot of fun to record. That was...
What about the recording process that just made it fun for you compared to maybe the other tracks on the record?
Well, me and the guy who did Staring in the Sun, my friend, my friend, Phil, he wrote that song. Me and him in 2015 got together and did... like a 3-day thing where we just recorded a bajillion songs, some of them instrumentals, but like some of them with vocals, some of them covers. And I was like, I had been listening to the 20 song albums that Foxygen had made before they were like officially like signed.
Yeah.
And like, I was like, oh my God, that's so fun just to like throw like a bajillion different ideas onto like one project.
Yeah.
Like just such a big mess in a beautiful way. So I really wanted to do something like that. So I was like, Phil, like, let's do this because you have all these songs that you've been wanting to record too. And I have some as well. And we got all these friends. So that little project we made, it's online. The Living Daylights is the band name if you want to look it up on Bandcamp. So Don't Make It Harder was a song from there. And so was Staring at the Sun. And we did that in Phil's parents' basement back when we were in high school. And he's got this like house that didn't like look like a whole lot from the outside, but this basement, it looked like a 70s ski lodge. He's got like all this wood and like, like it was kind of like almost, I mean, the footprint of the building didn't even look as big as his basement. It was weird. And we were set up all the stuff that we had, all the crappy high school gear. And Isaac came through with Don't Make It Harder. He just had this riff and he played that guitar and he sang on that song. Like most of the vocals are him at that time. And we tracked the bass of the song. The basis of the song was rhythm guitar and then drums. So I did the drums actually, which is like, I couldn't do that right now. I'd have to warm up because I haven't drummed in so long. But it was so fun to record drums and him playing guitar, and it was such a fun riff. And then we just kind of chilled for an hour. He wrote the vocals and sang them, and that was just really fun. Like watching Isaac sing. He hadn't done a ton of singing at that point, like into a onto a recording. So it's like, it was great to see him doing that, and he killed it. And then it's just such a great, fun song. So that was a great memory. And then I forget about the song. And then when I was doing this project, it's like, oh my gosh, we got to do that song again. So it was like, and that song is super fun to play live. And so that is probably one of my favorite memories.
Yeah. For people who aren't, here, you're like, we're videoing this. And so you did a fair bit of like documentation throughout the recording process, didn't you, with like recording video or trying to save all that stuff?
Yeah.
So what was your thought process for that? Is it just something you wanted to have on hand, or was it, or just you wanted to be able to look back at this, or what was kind of the idea?
Both for sure. And I'm aware that if I want to promote something, I need video.
You need content. Yeah.
So that was a lot of it. But at the same time, like as I started being more conscious about like setting up a little old camera or an iPhone camera, even, it's like, okay, like this is actually gonna be nice because like I could maybe even make some kind of collect or documentary, I guess, like some kind of little mini doc of the album at some point. So if I come around to editing it, basically,
it's a slog. There's a project that got shelved from a tour that I was just like trying to grab video at every moment. You're just like, it's fun to like look back and be able to like, oh yeah, that happened. And just like, did you find any moments? Have you gone back through any of that footage or? Not really. Or
I think I don't think it's super entertaining. You know, like it's like. But if someone really likes the album, like I think it'd be probably somewhat interesting. So that's why I'm not like in a rush to do something with it. But I think there's got to be some good moments in there somewhere. Because I would just set up a camera and then like we'd just be recording, or or it was maybe clips from a show or something like that. So, there was a moment when a PA speaker fell on Isaac during rehearsal. But and I was recording audio so I could hear back, listen to the rehearsal. And I was like wishing that I had video of that. He's okay.
That's good.
But someone pulled a cable and it pulled over the
speaker. And
So, we'll see. And like I said, like if I want to post a video to promote promote a song on the album, then we have different visual information. So it'll be fun to use.
What's next then for Filthy Kittens? Because you have the record out. You played your album release show about a few days ago as of recording this. Kind of what's the upcoming thoughts for and plans for Filthy Kittens?
Playing it loose. We got a couple shows that are booked, but we're not like in a rush to get going on something new. I think that I think we'll probably start recording like different songs soon, and no plans. Nothing specific.
It's supposed to be fun, you don't want to like put too much of a pressure on it. So I get it.
Yeah, in a way, yeah. I think that like if people, I have some songs in mind to record for Filthy Kittens that could be good, and then if other members are like, hey, I got a song, then we can kind of continue the collective of all these songs in this kind of Beatlesy way, where everyone's singing different lead vocals and vocalists. But we'll just see what people are down to do. It's a nice loose thing that can breathe, not only with the sound of it and it having kind of this sloppiness in a way, tastefully, hopefully, but then with the plans for the band, that's kind of same thing. I definitely pushed pretty hard for this release show to be like, okay, like since I did, like the majority of the recording and mixing, especially, that was a lot on me. It's like, all right, getting this album and the show is going to be done. And I kind of, before the show was even going to be an album release show, I've been doing the majority, like the booking for it. So, we'll see. Like, I think that people, I think that us kittens enjoy it. So I think that we'll be doing more for sure. And I just don't want to make any sort of promises or anything to myself or anybody. So or any pressure onto somebody else. But it's a really fun project, so we'll see.
Oh, totally. And kind of finally, where can people connect with Filthy Kittens online? What social media? Where can they find the music? Kind of what's all the links?
Filthy Kittens on everything. Okay. I think that Twitter, we couldn't get Filthy Kittens as the username, but we have about 5 followers. So just go on Instagram, Filthy Kittens, and or Facebook and Spotify, all that jazz. So it's all up there, and there'll be some I also got video of the show too that I've still been too lazy to post.
Yeah.
So there'll be more interesting things to digest online. But the album is out and it's 8 songs, and I feel really good about it. So yeah, and it's nice to be able to talk about it too. So since there's so much I could continue to just talk about and ramble on about with the songs. So and like I said before, the album itself is kind of a little bit of closure. So having this conversation is nice in that way as well.
Well, perfect.
Yeah.
The record's called Trouble in Mayberry. It's out now, as Henry just said. You can find it anywhere you stream your music. Congrats on the record. It's fantastic. Loved it. It was a great kind of intro, first record of like officially listened to for 2023. So
yeah, cool.
So Henry, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Joe.
The Ear Coffee Podcast is a companion to the blog of the same name. If you like this episode, please leave us a rate and review so we can stand out among the other music podcasts. You can follow us at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram @Ear Coffee. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.